Hello and welcome to the Varietal Show. My name is Rory and you are watching the Varietal Literature YouTube page, which is a group of writers from Vancouver who just like doing things with narrative. And we have a website, varietal-literature.ca, if you prefer to read things. I know that's less popular these days, but if you prefer to read things, that's the place to do it. And links down in the description, even to some specific stories. We do choose your own adventures, experimental fiction, poetry, all sorts of stuff, whatever we want. But what we're doing here today is we're having fun together. I'm a writer, and I'm going to write live. But you can see my work, and you can contribute to it, or you can ask me to do certain things. And that's lit games, basically. Some days it's a little more structured than others. What we're going to do today, though, is we are going to write food blogs. Now, I'd sort of recommended a theme here with Samwise Gamgee, because I like Lord of the Rings. It's comfort food for me. And one of the themes of our January streams is that it's sort of our antidepressant streams because, well, January's bleak, where I live anyways, Vancouver. And tends to be a downer for everybody. So we're taking specific steps to try and cheer ourselves up. GS says, good evening, and then has several delicious looking food emotes. And then in bracket says, my food blog. So... what is the structure of the show then? Well, the structure of the show is usually I recommend you something, which I will recommend in a minute. And then we do what's called the lit game, literature games, which is just live writing. Sometimes it's more of a structured game. Sometimes it's just sort of writing live together, almost kind of improv. And then the last thing we usually do is pretty open, if we do anything at all, but sometimes I give you some advice or encouragement or whatever else. About writing, not life. Don't come to me for life advice. What I have here is a wonderful book that was given to me. That's a recipe book, since that's the theme we're on. Recipes themed around Tolkien. And some of them are, really thinly veiled. Like, they're basically just a recipe with a pun, but some are better. So, like, it has really, I think what stands out about it, beautiful art. And if Lord of the Rings is about nothing else, it's about art, beautiful letters, things like that. But it does have stuff that's on theme, lembas bread recipe, but I gotta say, it is unlikely that this is lembas bread. Because if you don't know, lembas bread was a magical bread that was taught to, I'm blanking on her name. The lady who gave Gimli the hairs. Cannot think of her name right now. By her god, her Valinor. Valar. And it is a magical bread made out of a magical plant that only the elves could grow, which is my way of telling you that I am a dork, and I really like Tolkien. I'm open though on the on what we do a blog about, if anything at all. Some nights are really quiet, so it's kind of just me writing and joking with myself, and I'm okay with that. Some nights it's really busy, and a lot of people are like jumping at the bit. So we'll see how tonight goes. If you guys are out there, say hello in the chat. And I'd love to know how you guys are doing. And if you've had a good meal in the last week. Because obviously post-Christmas, everyone kind of gets into spinach. Which means it is time for me to do a segment I actually haven't done in a while. Right. Whoops. Ooh. I don't even know how to explain what just happened, but it was hilarious. It's a technical back-end thing. Oh, that's super weird that it did that. Okay. Go all the way down to here. There we go. Now. There we go. Left on Red. Left on Red is a section where we give recommendations about things that we've read, that we like, that maybe you should check out. And I'm gonna make a case here for... I just realized I'm going to put it away. Well, anyways, you know what it is. I'm going to make a case here for the Silmarillion. Now, okay, so the Silmarillion... So I'm recommending that you at least give parts of the Silmarillion a chance. Especially the introduction chapter. So what is the Silmarillion if you've never heard of it? Well, Silmarillion is the story of the Silmarils, which are stones that glow with a particular light, well, with the light of trees that I'm not going to get into, two big life trees that the guy who preceded Mordor and... man, I'm blanking on a lot of names tonight. Key names. The Forger of the One Ring, his god, was the one who with Ungoliants chewed through the trees. Anyways, this is some lore stuff that I'm sure is uninteresting to people. But the point is, Tolkien creates a world. He originally creates a world to back up his made-up languages, because that's what he wanted to do. From that world, then, he started plucking stories and turning them into books. But for him, the world always existed before the stories. So, the first story he plucks out is The Hobbit, which if you haven't read, that's my suggestion. Go read The Hobbit. It's definitely one of the easier ones to read. And then he plucks out Lord of the Rings here, which is obviously thick, and a bit of a challenge. Now, from that, though, he has all these notes that his son formulates into a book that's released after he passes away, called the Silmarillion, which tells this multi-millennia story of the sort of greed that the Silmarils inspired, and the way that the elves came to the earth and fought each other and all this kind of stuff. The problem that people have with it is it's peak Tolkien. Remember that Tolkien wrote these books as like a piece of his world. For him, that was about the world. Silmarillion is all world. And as a result, people avoid it because there is literally like a whole chapter on the different trees and what their stories are and so on. Here's why I'm recommending it, though. There are stories in the Silmarillion that are beautiful, that I think most people have never heard. And with Lord of the Rings coming to Prime, and obviously pulling some references, because a lot of Silmarillion stuff is also referenced in the footnotes of this, I think it would be worth it to sort of pluck through. I mean, you could look at it as one big, overwhelmingly large, complex lore book, or you can kind of skip over the lore stuff if that glazes your eyes and read it as a series of short stories about the origins of Middle-earth and stuff that are very beautiful. They're really some of his best writing. So that's my recommendation, to take a stab at the Silmarillion. Very few people have actually finished every page of it. I have not finished every page of it. But I think it's more like a collection of short stories set in the world of Tolkien mixed in with some lore notes. You could skip the lore notes and you would get beautiful stories. And that's my Left on Red recommendation, which means that it is time for Lit Games. All right, so Lit Games again stands for literature games, and what we're doing tonight is food blogs. So, what is a food blog? If you've ever tried to look for a recipe, well, I'll just ask you, Chad, what happens? When you try to look for a recipe, what happens? You wind up on a page where, here, we'll do one right now. I'm going to do one live. Let me just bring this up really quick. And there. And Italian recipe blog. There you go. I don't know. Italian food forever, pinch of Italy. Italian food forever. I don't know. We'll pick this one at random. I haven't actually looked at this one yet, so let's hope it doesn't have shocking things. Let's see. What does it do for me? Is this a true blog or is this... There we are. Yeah, see, this is what I'm talking about. It's instead of... So you come here and you're like, here's a caramelized... let me adjust that a bit so you can see a little clearer. Whatever. Caramelized roasted acorn squash wedges with dried cherries and walnuts. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. So what's the recipe and what's the ingredients? And instead, it opens with, the holidays are quickly approaching. And as is usual for this time of year, I am testing recipes for our holiday meals. And it goes on and on and on. Some go on for literally pages and pages where I'm like, I really don't even know if there's a recipe in here. So if you've ever been the person who like is scanning through, what is going on in those texts? That's a serious question. If you do that, why? Like if you have a blog about food and you want to tell me the backstory of your recipe, and I'm assuming some people must enjoy this or else why would they do it? Then put it after the recipe. Like if somebody likes it, they'll get to it. But like, I'm not reading it because it's in the way. Anyways, point is, if you want to know really important things like, I'll be honest with you, I intended to use dried cranberries, but having returned from 6 months in Italy, my pantry was apparently lacking in cranberries, so I used what was there, and that was dried sour cherries. Like, all right, why do I need to know this? Why don't you just put cranberries in it or whatever else? Anyways. What I thought we would do here is we would do our own recipe blog. So we would pick a recipe and then we would sort of write it. And I'm recommending it from Samwise Gamgee, and I got absolutely no pushback on that. So I'm going to stick with that unless I hear otherwise. By the way, if you want to know Rory, the greatest princess ever known, that story, check out our show last week. It's called My Princess Backstory. So we'll do famous literary character food blog. And what I want to know from you guys is if you have any preferences on food or recipe. The first one that comes to mind for me is a little dark, is volcano cakes. And also if you have a name for it. Right now I think I'm just going to call it Samwise Gamgee's Tater Corner. Nathan says the internet has become a nightmare and the recipe websites are the epicenter. They really do represent, I mean, it's got to be a dated thing now, right? Like, I still find these things, but not recently. And for that reason, like, I have to assume this is like, at best, a millennial era thing. And Gen Z it's having nothing to do with it. But I don't know. If you're from Gen Z... I'm sure you're not watching this, but if you are, let me know, because I'm curious. Okay, so Samwise Gamgee's Tater Corner. I am more than happy to change that name. I just have nothing in mind. But volcano cakes are the recipe that comes to mind for me because he almost died on a volcano, which I guess is pretty dark. And literally nobody should have to. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing with this. If you've never been here, it is a lot more loose and improvisational. I'm going to take a lava cake recipe here. Once again, big list. I'm going to use a real recipe. I've never actually made this recipe. I think the thing that really is bizarre to me is how many of them are so optimistic that you want to that what you really want to do is come on. Completely lost my train of thought. Like a good presenter and entertainer does, just fades off into silence, forgets their own thoughts. Okay. So I think, like, usually they loosely reference the recipe. So let's just take a look at this recipe. I have made, they're called lava cakes. I'm calling them volcano cakes here, to make the reference to Mount Doom, the worst named thing in all of Tolkien. They are essentially, well, okay, there's two ways to make them. Let's see which way they went with. But they are essentially either underbaked cake, but then there's also a version that's basically frozen-ish ganache that you put in the center and melt. All right, so yeah, this looks like they're making a ganache. No, maybe not. No, it looks like they're doing the underbaked. Okay. Let's, actually, I'm going to go a step further. Let's call them Mount Doom cakes. Now, one thing I didn't really take into consideration, if you're kind of a Tolkien lore nerd, is at this point, where I conceptually am putting Samwise writing this recipe blog, this would be after Frodo has gone to the Undying Lands, which is effectively like dying for Samwise. I mean, he does go in later notes and letters. He does go somehow. I think he goes on the same boat as Legolas and Gimli go to the Undying Lands. Kind of the last boat out, I think, because he was also a ring bearer, and those are the only mortals that got to go. I forget how they justify Gimli going. Right. This isn't a Lord of the Rings discussion. You can't write the recipe. What do you mean, Holly? Okay, so now that's the recipe, but obviously now we have to put mountains of text in between it. So the scene is actually pretty reflected in the movie. If you've only seen the movie, it's about the same. My point was at this point, Samwise Gamgee has basically just lost his friend, so he's reflecting on it. So it always starts in this pontificating philosophical way, usually about their childhood. Holly's House says you have to write the entire journey to Mordor first. Yeah, I mean, that's basically what we're doing. I just wanted to make sure we had a recipe, because what they do is they'll like talk for a paragraph and they'll be like, and that's why I use dark chocolate. And you'll be like, is that why, or is it just because it tastes good? Okay. So now I gotta think of Samwise's voice. I was kind of listening to clips of him today, trying to pick it up and reading a bit of my Tolkien collection. Holly's House says, you have to do lembas bread. I had it, it's delicious, and I dream about it. Lembas bread, well, I would have to grow the special corn, which he's using in the Old English sense, which is really a kind of hardened wheat. That was given to Galadriel. That's the name I couldn't pull earlier. Was given to Galadriel by her goddess, and is grown exclusively still in those the forest that we meet Galadriel in Lord of the Rings, because Galadriel is older than the world, which is something you may not know or care about. But I don't have that corn, and there's no way that Samwise would have access to that material, because basically all those elves leave, and no one is left to tend to it, and it doesn't grow under normal circumstances. So I bet you feel foolish now. This is gonna be a canon consistent, stupid stream. Samwise Gamgee's Tater Corner. Okay, as a wee little one, it was a rare treat to get chocolate. That's a good point. Holly's House says I feel he would have done a potato dish. I'm assuming he's running a regular recipe blog. So I think we could find a way to work potatoes in, even though it probably won't be good. As a wee little one, it was a rare treat to get chocolate delivered. Oh, who would bring chocolate? It's always elves. It's elves. 100% always elves. From the northern... I forget their names. They have a name. The Northern Forest Elves. Sorry if you're a Tolkien fan. For the rest of you, I'm not sorry because you don't care. My mother would retrieve the beans and spread them over her canvas cloth beneath spring skies near the Shire. I remember how my shoulders ached helping her grind out the cocoa needed for her famous cakes. How could we work potatoes into this? Chat, how could we work potatoes? How do you work potatoes into a chocolate cake? I remember how my shoulders ached helping her grind out the cocoa needed for her famous cakes. Nearly as much as my shoulders ached carrying Frodo up the ragged cliffs Okay, Holly's House is killing it here. She says, to calm my aching shoulder muscles, she would rub them with butter. Unsalted was best, which is what I'm using for this recipe. There we go. You guys got the vibe. I'm adding that in. Whoop. Not that way. Paste without formatting. Thank you. My ma would calm my aching shoulder muscles by rubbing them with butter. Unsalted was best, which is what I'm using for this recipe. My shoulders ached nearly as much as when they carried Frodo up the ragged cliffs of Mount Doom if you are unfamiliar with the tale, buy my book. Oh, what is it? It's not There and Back Again, is it? Oh my god, what does he call the book? I think maybe it's in the first book here. There's a name. They don't call it Lord of the Rings in the Lord of the Rings world. There and Back Again is The Hobbit, and then he picks up on the story. What is it called in the world of Tolkien? Nope, doesn't tell me. I think the last book says it. Is this important? It is to me, and it's my stream. All right. Nope, doesn't tell me there either. But hey, why don't we enjoy one of the most beautiful lines that in this book. This is when Frodo is leaving on the boat, and it's never explained how he would know this. But this is Frodo's perspective of passing to the Undying Lands on the elven boat. And then it seemed to him that as in his dream in the House of Bombadil, the grey rain curtain turned all to silver glass and was rolled back, and he beheld white shores and beyond them a far green country under a swift sunrise. Which, I believe, Gandalf says in the movie, but is not Gandalf in the book. Okay, I'm very distractible, so I'm just going to call it There and Back Again, Hobbit's Tale. Okay. When the weight of the world is not your own. My shoulders ache nearly as much as when they carried Frodo up the ragged cliffs of Mount Doom. Okay. I ponder on these memories as I watch my cocoa cakes darken in my stove. How did I come by this recipe? Oh, Nathan says, gotta bring a gift. I'm not sure what you're referring to there, Nathan. What are you saying? What gift? How did I come by this recipe? Well, it was a cold morning when I was wandering the gray wastes near the Dark Lord with the ring bearer, as you know. I feel like I'm getting his voice more. A gift to bring to the Undying Land. Do they bring gifts to the Undying Land? It's a new thing to me. Oh, no. Oh, I see what you're saying. Nathan's saying he's making the cakes to bring there. Well, that would essentially mean he's writing his own eulogy. So, I don't know. Do we want to go that way? That's a one-way trip. when I was wandering the Grey Wastes near the Dark Lord with the Ring Bearer, as you know. And that terrible, crooked, limbed golem was gagging down some bug-eyed fish. And I thought, as I looked upon those bursting eyes, maybe my cake would be best with 2 eggs. At the time, no one paid much attention. Milord, what does he call him in the movie? Master Frodo. Master Frodo was sinking into the depths of the hellish ring. So his opinions on the cake were brief and unhelpful. But I paid that no mind. It was as it was then, too, that I looked at the swamps and their ghostly faces, which called to every passerby. But became fixated with the very smooth texture of its soil through my rugged, hobbity foot. All right, oh, I guess I should finish that thought. I realized then I should first make a smooth ganache, then use that as the basis of a lava center in a cake. Hence I have foregone my mother's method of underbaking, and instead have applied the Grey Wastes swamp ganache to the center of each cake. Okay, what ingredient should we go with next here, guys? We've got the butter covered. We've got sort of the chocolate covered. I talked about the 2 eggs and egg yolks. The sugar, salt, and flour. I mean, basically we can talk about what kind of sugar, salt, and flour they recommend is sometimes the case. Sometimes they'll spend like 14 100 words to tell you that you should probably use a higher protein flour for this. But you can use all-purpose if you want. You're like, did I need 1,400 words, or could it just say, here's an option? I'm not sure if those swamps are called the Grey Waste, by the way. I might be mixing that up with another thing in Tolkien. It is amazingly hard to recall things when you're streaming. Like, it's just, you can't see any of it. It's just me smiling, but there's just nothing but information here. Just screens and meters and so on. So I always find that I don't recall things very well. Okay, well, you guys let me know what you think I should do. And I think I'll go with the salt. Now, the salt was a real point of inspiration for old Samwise. I said, Samwise, you've done it. This will be the best lava cakes ever made. I like the idea that okay, so if you don't know, in the end of Lord of the Rings, Frodo does not tell Samwise that he is going to leave. A couple of years later, he leaves. Because the actual end of the book takes place, there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens after the movies end. And then he tells Samwise, that they do show this in the film, he tells Samwise to finish the book. He leaves some pages for him to finish the story because he thinks that it's Samwise's story as well. And I like the idea that Samwise filled it with just his really myopic recipe observations. That, like, this epic tale written from Bilbo to Frodo, because The Hobbit is supposed to be a part of the same book. Somewhat. Yeah, I think that's the case in the continuity. And then Samwise just comes in the end and does, like, food blocks. For, you see, I realized that the South Seas, just a pitch away from big old Gondor, were where all the salts came in. And I knew that it started big and flaky. But the traveling broke it right down into fine powder. So if I got it at the source and was real careful about it, I could use flake salt. And indeed, if you can get it, flake salt is the best. However, if you can't, any old salt will be almost exactly the same. I don't know how many times I've read stuff like that in recipe blogs. All right. Now, on to the flour. Well, I think here's where I can work in Holly's recommendation. The first round of these... Oh, wait. Let me do one other thing. I wanted to add in something here. Flake salt is the best. I recall telling... Oh, GS has another perspective, which is true. I've seen it go this way as well. Best to use flake salt, but if you can't, this recipe was a waste of time. Telling Master Frodo about the great cakes I would make. But he shushed me as a pack of orcs heard me talking about stupid old cakes. I'm gonna go that direction, GS. Anyways, if you can't get flake salt, any old salt will largely ruin the flavor, but ain't unworkable. The first round of these cakes I made for my wife, Rosie. Well, she was pregnant with my first daughter. I wanted them to be real special, so I called in a favor and got myself a little bit of elf corn for the flour that I harbor in my pantry to this day. It really is the secret to the flavor. Unfortunately, Galadriel is the only person that could rear it. And she has left Middle-earth forever. But if you can get it, it's the same stuff they make Lembas with. And it's perfect for this recipe. Finally, I shape them into big ol' Mount Doom. Since I thought of them when I never... Gia says I have spare elf corn if anyone needs any. Finally, I shaped them into a big old Mount Doom, since I thought of them when I never... when I believed I'd be dying in its lava. If you want to know how we didn't, check out my book. Holly's House says, I feel like this isn't preachy enough. Recipe bloggers always act like they invented organic food and Indian spices. I agree. I think the problem I'm going to run into with that is that Samwise isn't that preachy. So I mean, we have a bit of time. I could do a completely snobbish version. Forget the Samwise thing. Because I think I'm done with the Samwise one. I'm just going to read it aloud as I normally do. And then if you guys want, we think of some ideas that you might want in a snobby recipe blog. And we'll see if we can do another one kind of quick. Because that'll be fun as well. Writing like a snob is one of my favorite things. But okay, here's our Samwise Gamgee one. Samwise Gamgee's Tater Corner. As a wee little one, it was a rare treat to get chocolate delivered from the northern forest elves. My mother would retrieve the beans and spread them. I am aware, by the way, that the hobbits did not trade with the northern forest elves when he was a child, but I need to bend something, because where else is he getting chocolate from? Would retrieve the beans and spread them over her canvas cloth beneath the spring skies near the Shire. I remember how my shoulders ached helping her grind out the cocoa needed for her famous cakes. Mama would calm my aching shoulders muscles by rubbing them with butter. Unsalted was best, which is what I'm using for this recipe. My shoulders ached nearly as much as when they carried Frodo up the ragged cliffs of Mount Doom. If you are unfamiliar with the tale, buy my book, There and Back Again, A Hobbit's Tale. It doesn't have to be Lord of the Rings, Holly. I ponder on these memories as I watch my cocoa cakes darken in my stove. How did I come by this recipe? It was a cold morning when I was wandering the grey wastes near the Dark Lord with the ring bearer, as you know, and that terrible crooked-limbed golem was gagging down some bug-eyed fish, and I thought as I looked upon those bursting eyes, maybe my cake would be best with 2 eggs. At the time, no one paid much attention. Master Frodo was sinking into the depths of the hellish ring, so his opinions on the cake were brief and unhelpful, but I paid that no mind. It was then, too, that I looked at the swamps and the ghostly faces which called to every passer-by, but became fixated instead with the very smooth texture of its soil through my rugged hobbity foot. I realized then I should first make a smooth ganache, then use that as the basis of a lava center in a cake. Hence I have foregone my mother's method of underbaking and instead have applied the grey waste swamp ganache to the center of each cake. Now, the salt was a real point of inspiration for old Samwise. I said, Samwise, you've done it. This will be the best lava cakes ever made. For you see, I realized that the South Seas were just a pitch away from the big old Gondor, which was where, I think I meant to say there, which is where all the salts came in. And I knew that it started big and flaky, but the traveler broke it right down into a fine powder. So if I got it at the source and was real careful about it, I could use flake salt. And indeed, if you can get it, flake salt is the best. I recall telling Master Frodo about the great cakes I would make, but he shushed me as a pack of orcs heard me talking about stupid old cakes. Anyways, if you can't get flake salt, any old salt will largely ruin the flavor, but ain't unworkable. The first round of these cakes I made for my wife Rosie while she was pregnant with my first daughter. I wanted them to be real special, so I called in a favor and got myself a little bit of elf corn for the flour that I harbor in my pantry to this day. It really is the secret to the flavor. Unfortunately, Galadriel is the only person that could rear it, and she has left Middle-earth forever. But if you can get it, it's the same stuff they make lembas with, and it's perfect for this recipe. Finally, I shaped them into a big old Mount Doom since I thought of them when I believed I'd be dying in its lava. If you want to know how we didn't, check out my book. Okay. Here, we're just going to do generic snobby woman. Let's face it, it's usually some hippie woman starting a food blog to be a food influencer. Okay. The first thing I really like is when they do a really basic recipe. So, like, let's just say it's like butter chicken. Okay. And let me pull up a butter chicken recipe really quick. I think at this point, anybody who was disinterested is probably gone, so it's probably just you and me, faithful chatters. Butter chicken, butter chicken. Holly's House says the only reason I know about the Silmarillion is because of Stephen Colbert, and that makes sense. The opening of Silmarillion is really quite beautiful. It sort of establishes a viewpoint he has about the world of Lord of the Rings, and it's a musical one where he sees dissonance as like rebellion against basically the god figure. Okay, so we have a butter chicken recipe. Again, I can't speak for it. Whoop. Oh, too small. Let's get that size right up. What happened to my text anyways? No, I want it to be that size. No, doesn't want to do it. Okay. Getting myself distracted here. It was during my first month in my Indian journey that I really realized North Americans have no sense of the meaning of the word spice. I don't mean just heat. That's a simplistic way to view the rich and layered history of Indian curries, if you can even call it that. More on the distinctions later. Everybody's going ham on this. Okay. Free-range chicken. She grows her own select species of tomatoes. Yeah, hey, Drew, I don't know if you're okay, but if you're watching this, I hope you're okay. Holly's House, they're always a mother. It's an easy weeknight meal for the kids. I'm going for the non-mother one, because there are these ones that are basically like, I was a rich wife and I decided to just hang out in really expensive areas and go on vacation. She got the mortar and pestle in Chinatown. Okay, we got lots of ideas here. Spice is like the quilting of flavor. And that is not understood by a jar of sauce or even a few powdered spoonfuls of tasteless nonsense from a Western grocery store. Instead, I have put together what I think is the best meal. Oh, we only have a few minutes left. I don't think I'll be able to finish this, but I am enjoying writing a little bit of this. Instead, I put together what I think is the best meal you can get in our factory farming big box society. The best Indian meal. A few, since we're running out of time, a few key things. You will need French import saffron only. It's the only one we get in the West that works. However, you must order it by the crate. This may seem cost prohibitive, but for a few $1,000s, you can make over 100 butter chicken recipes. Toss out your blender. Just says I have 2 packs of frozen President's Choice butter chicken. Is that the same? Absolutely. Toss out your blender and buy a volcanic stone hand hewn pestle and mortar. You will need their largest size. So if you can carry it out to the car by yourself, then it's too small. What else? Well, it might seem extreme. A small chicken coop with Western red breed ornate purple chicken. Nah, I don't like purple. What about is really essential to this basic Indian recipe. P.S. If you think you can't have one in your apartment block, check your local bylaws. Many don't explicitly forbid raising live chickens in or around your suite. All right. I don't think I have much time for anything else, so I'm just going to read that one back. It was during the first month in my Indian journey that I really realized North Americans have no sense of the meaning of the word spice. I don't mean just heat. That's a simplistic way to view the rich and layered history of Indian curries, if you can even call it that. More on the distinctions later. Spice is like the quilting of flavor, and that is not understood by a jar of sauce or even a few powdered spoonfuls of tasteless nonsense from a Western grocery store. Instead, I've put together what I think is the best Indian meal you can get in our factory farming big box society. A few key things. You will need French import saffron only. It's the only one we get in the West that works. However, you must order it by the crate. This may seem cost prohibitive, but for a few $1,000s, you can make over 100 butter chicken recipes. Toss out your blender and buy a volcanic stone hand-hewn pestle and mortar. You will need their largest size, so if you can carry it out to the car by yourself, then it's too small. While it may seem extreme, a small chicken coop with Western red breed ornate Picario chickens is really essential to this basic Indian recipe. P.S. If you think you can't have one in your apartment block, check your local bylaws. Many don't explicitly forbid raising live chickens in or around your suite. All right. Oh, yeah. Amazon links in it. See link below for mortar and pestle. Have a communal. It's only fresh for a few days, so get your friends together and have a communal cooking experience. Yeah. Challenge the Western way of thinking of your local city council. Can't beat the chicken and flavor of live home-raised chicken killed the same day. I bet you can't, if I'm being completely honest. All right, well, this was a lot of silly nonsense. I mean, I guess I met the brief. I don't want to be doing clickbait, so I believe I gave you a Samwise Gamgee, and I even gave a little bonus blog. But that's about an hour, and that's about as long as we make everybody hang out and do stuff with me. Thank you so much for coming by and for watching tonight, or day if you're watching it during the day. If you enjoyed this, there's a whole playlist of lit games where we do silly stuff. If you want to see me reading more serious stories that I've written, you can check out the live reads. I've been reading pieces of my story about tree people, which sounds silly, but it's fairly straight-faced and serious. And well, I don't know. There's tons of other stuff on the YouTube page. Check out our playlists. That's probably the best way to see if there's something that interests you. Beyond that, you can check out our website, varietal-literature.ca. Check out stories by myself and other people who occasionally come on stream with me, that are all friends of ours that we went to the writer's studio together in Vancouver. And yeah, that's all I've got tonight. Thank you so much to GS and Nathan and Holly's house for coming by and hanging out with me in the stream. And it's been really good to see you guys. It's been really good to see you quietly lurking out there, whether we were watching this back pre-recorded or whatever else. And you take care of yourself. You can go wherever you want, but the store is closed, so get the hell out.